It's time for Wes Strader's Sportsline on ESPN Radio 102.7. Sportsline is a locally produced sports talk show that focuses on high school and WKU as well as regional athletes who play at the next level. Sportsline was originated by Hall of Fame sportscaster Wes Strader. Now with a new version of Sportsline, here's Garret Browning on ESPN Radio 102.7.
And good afternoon. From the ESPN studios on Campbell Lane, I'm Garret Browning. You're listening on 102.7 FM and ESPN Radio 102.7.com to the Sportsline every Monday, 5 to 6 on your airwaves, at Garret Browning 5 on Twitter if you want to reach out to me during the show and shoot me any questions. We'll have the voice of the Hilltoppers, Randy Lee, pulling up into the studio in just a little bit. Give you a quick little SportsCenter update before we swing into the full show. WKU football 5-2, 4-0 in Conference USA after their homecoming win this past Saturday, 30-14 over Charlotte. They've got a big moonshine throwdown match versus Marshall and Huntington this Saturday at 1:30. WKU volleyball is number 23 in the AVCA's latest poll. That's American Volleyball Coaches Association. I did have to look that up. Nadia Judene got her 4th Setter of the Week award in Conference USA. Paige Briggs got her 4th Freshman of the Week award. They have an NCAA Best 21st win this past weekend at UAB Friday, at Charlotte Sunday. But the big story for me over the weekend, my Titans somehow pulled it out over the Chargers 23-20. The Titans are 3-4, and just like that, back in the mix. What do you know? Mr. Randy Lee pulling up into studio with us. And also, we had Hilltopper Hysteria this past Thursday. Not your normal all-star game setup for the Hilltopper Hysteria. We got an actual scrimmage, and Randy joining us in the studio now. Did you get to hang out for Hysteria this past Thursday?
I did, Garrett. I prefer the scrimmage rather than the three-point contest and the slam dunk contest and things of that magnitude. I think you see a lot more, and I know the kids enjoyed it.
And I know you'll see the usual tweets, oh, that guy put on 30 pounds, and, that guy can shoot so much better. You don't want to put too much stock into a scrimmage. But I think one thing I did see in my eyes was it feels like this Hilltopper basketball team has more guys on the perimeter that you trust to shoot the three-point ball, maybe help out Charles Bassey in the paint a little bit.
Yeah, the two things that Rick wanted to go after in the offseason were shooting and passing ability. And I know with Justice, they've been able to improve their passing. I really think he's going to be a pivotal player for this year's team. Rawls, the point guard from Chattanooga's, he's a point guard. If Cooper can get the waiver from Lipscomb from the NCAA, he's a really good passer. So they certainly have improved themselves in those two areas where they were probably a little deficient last year.
And the Kenny Cooper, that situation kind of confuses me. I understand the transfer. The situation right now revolves around a coaching change, but he's also a grad transfer, is he not, from
Yes.
what I understand?
Yes.
So isn't that – I don't see how that affects that ruling at all.
I'm confused. Some schools with coaching changes, the players were eligible to play immediately. It happened in North Carolina State. They 2 years ago were able to get an Ohio State guard ASAP. As soon as the Ohio State coach left, the player wanted to transfer, and he was granted his eligibility and played immediately at NC State. That's not the only case, so it's confusing to me. Whether it's true or not, I always feel like the NCAA takes care of the Power 5 conferences first, and then after they get done with all of those particular cases, they just sort of go on down the ladder in their eyes. So I always feel like schools in Conference USA and the Sun Belt and things of that magnitude are always going to be at the latter stages of the decision-making time frame. And I've heard from a good source who said that he didn't feel that Cooper would be eligible at all this year. I heard from through another person, that it looked good. So who knows? I have no idea.
And you can't ask the NCAA because it'll take 4 months to get back anyways.
Yes.
We'll talk more Hilltopper after this break. We've got big WKU football news to get to. 5-2 overall, 4-0 in Conference USA. Going back a couple of weeks, I can't believe I'm saying these stats. I mean, I keep going back to week 1 against Central Arkansas, and here we go again was kind of the mindset I think a lot of fans almost had. And all of a sudden, this team is one win away from bowl eligibility. They're undefeated in the conference, and they've got 2 East Division opponents coming up, and they could honestly seal their trip to a conference championship in the coming weeks.
Yes, with wins in back-to-back games, the chances would be great that they would win the East Division for sure. Now, 2 big challenges. Marshall and FAU were the 2 preseason East Division favorites. Marshall was 1, FAU was 2. Marshall went to FAU and won in the closing seconds last week. But if the Tops get these 2 wins in back-to-back weeks, they're going to be playing for a championship game.
We'll get into that and much, much more with Randy Lee here on ESPN Radio, the voice of the Hilltoppers. You can listen to him later tonight as well at 7 o'clock. We'll have Coach Helton, the Tyson Helton Coaches Show. That'll be on Sam 100.7 at 7 o'clock. Do you know the guests that they bring you beforehand, or is it just kind of a surprise?
Most of the time. Now, we're not allowed to, for NCAA regulations, we're not allowed to even say we have guests other than the head coach.
Oh, wow. Well, I won't mention that then.
Now, the reason for that is free publicity to the establishment that we have the show at, which is Roosters, and you're using a student-athlete to draw people into the front door.
So if we were in California, it would be okay, basically.
In a couple of years, yes.
In a couple of years. More with Randy Lee here on the Sportsline, ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio1027.com.
Hey, Bowling Green, Steve Russell here with Consignment World, and I'm wanting to let the ESPN listener family know that Consignment World wants your business. We also want you to know that we're not a typical consignment store. I think Consignment World is more of an ESPN kind of store, and by that I mean we cover a lot of ground just like ESPN does. First of all, we're not a clothing store. Our focus is on good, clean, used furniture, decorating accessories, collectibles, primitives, tools, even sporting goods. In fact, at the time I'm making this radio spot, I'm just finishing up a liquidation of a large fishing lure collection and also liquidating a lot of nice turkey calls and Turkey Federation decor from a world-renowned turkey caller. At Consignment World, we do estate liquidations as well, and that means we never know what's going to come in the door, making variety our feature. Hey, if you haven't visited with us before, we want your business. We're Bowling Green's best-kept secret and hardest place to find. We're at 824 Broadway next to J.C. Kirby, 781-0009. Come see us.
Every room in your home, whatever it needs, United Furniture.
It's that time of year again, free furniture that is. United Furniture and Appliance is celebrating our 23rd annual free furniture and mattress event. That's right, you'll receive 28% in free furniture or bedding with any furniture or bedding purchase. Take advantage of United's store-wide savings, plus receive an additional 28% in free furniture or bedding. For instance, purchase a 4-piece bedroom group for $9.99, receive $279 in free furniture or bedding. Sofas, love seats, recliners, bedrooms, mattresses, dinettes, occasional tables, and yes, even lamps, pictures, rugs, and accessories. The possibilities are limitless. In-store financing and delivery available when you want it. Service with a smile for 72 years. United Furniture and Appliance, historic downtown Bowling Green.
United Furniture. Couldn't ask for anything more.
Junior Achievement's 24th Annual Career and Workforce Golf Invitational presented by M&L Electrical is Friday the 25th at Crosswinds Golf Course. Teams of 4 hit the links with morning or afternoon sessions trying to be crowned JA's overall golf champion. All golfers receive a Russell Athletic Polo and lunch from Rafferty's, Coca-Cola, and Smith Brothers Distributing. Junior Achievement's Career and Workforce Golf Invitational benefits junior achievement and its K-12 programs. Register today at jaforkids.com.
Classic car or truck, then join Brewster's Cruisin' for a Cure. This Tuesday, cruising will take place at Brewster's, 5 to 8 p.m., 2712 Scottsville Road. Brewster's Cruisin' for a Cure. Help out the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation and Alzheimer's Foundation, along with benefiting Hospice of Southern Kentucky. Brewster's Cruisin' for a Cure. Tuesday night at Brewster's, 5 to 8 on Scottsville Road. Bring out your classic car or truck and help out this great cause with J.C. Kirby and Son.
Garret Browning here on the Sports Line. Voice of the Hilltoppers Randy Lee with us in studio. Give you a quick Sports Center update. WKU football 5-2, 4-0 in Conference USA after their homecoming win over Charlotte. The Titans 3-4. They win over the Chargers on Sunday 23-20. And WKU volleyball, number 23 in the country in the AVCA poll, American Volleyball Coaches Association. Nadia Judine, Paige Briggs both got their 4th CUSA Awards of the Week. Setter of the Week for Nadia Judine and Freshman of the Week for Paige Briggs. Randy, it only took me about 10 to 15 tries to get Judine down.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. You're used to some of those tough names. You can roll through them a little faster.
I didn't know hers very well, though.
But you're going to have to remember it the next couple of years. Nadia Judine and Paige Briggs at UAB and at Charlotte, the volleyball team this weekend, Friday and Sunday. Friday's match against UAB will actually be on CUSA TV. With Randy Lee, the Tyson Helton Coaches Show is later tonight, 7 o'clock on SAM 100.7. And the Hilltoppers are 5-2, 4-0 in conference. We'll start with the win over Charlotte, homecoming week this past weekend for the Hilltoppers. I think it was one of the more, it's hard to say one of the more consistent games after what we saw against Army 2 weeks ago. I mean, that was one of the most consistent games I've ever seen WKU football put together, but they come back the next week, maybe not against as strong of an opponent, but a similar opponent in Conference USA, an opponent that's seen you a lot. And honestly, the Hilltoppers handle business pretty well.
Yeah, no doubt about that, Garrett. After they sort of figure things out on defense, they completely shut down Charlotte. Charlotte had -3 yards in the third quarter. I think they had 67 yards maybe in the second half. So once they got it all dialed up and made a couple of changes on defense, Charlotte didn't move the ball at all. Charlotte in the second half had 28 plays for 79 yards. And offensively, the Hilltoppers were better than they were against Army, but Charlotte's defense isn't as good as Army's is either. But one thing Charlotte did, they've been giving up tons of yards on the ground. So they came in and changed their defensive system, and they were bringing their corners from the edges. They were blitzing their corners, and they were basically saying, we're going to give up some yards in the pass game, but you're not going to run against us. And Ty Story was able to throw the ball and get it downfield a little bit. The previous couple games is mostly the short passing game, but with the way Charlotte was playing, they were able to expose them a little bit in the secondary, and it was as good of a all-around win probably as they have had this season. I would say probably all around was as good as win as they've had.
Offensively, coming into their year, I think there were a lot of position players that guys pointed to. We knew that the offensive line needed to step up, and to me, that's probably been one of the biggest keys to the Hilltoppers' success, especially on offense, which hasn't gotten as much of the credit because of what the defense has done through the last couple of weeks. But offensively, I feel like this offensive line has taken over a new culture almost compared to what we saw the last few years when that was the problem week in and week out.
Coach Helton said prior to the season the offensive line would not be the reason they lost any games this year. They would be the reason they won. And, they have been very, very strong. It's been Tyler Witt, left guard, Seth Joseph's your center, Jordan Mayer, this is your right guard, Miles Pate, your right tackle. They play every snap of every game. And they rotate the left tackle spot with Cole Spencer and Gunnar Britton. It's an offensive line that is a veteran offensive line in regards to experience. Now, they only have one senior. We talked about the offensive line struggles the last couple of years. A couple of years ago, they were starting freshmen in the offensive line and sophomores. And, last year they may have been a little better. But this same group's now been together for 3 years, and it's paying dividends here in 2019. They're among the best pass protection groups in college football, and we've had some good running games off and on. Gage has had 4 100-yard games, so I still think they can get better. They'll be tested this week. Marshall has a very good defensive line, but it has been a strength of this football team, and very rarely has even when Stephen Duncan was playing, they usually had plenty of time to pass, maybe with the exception of the first half against Louisville. Louisville brought some heat and got to them.
And for Ty Story, who took over for the injured Stephen Duncan, we were just mentioning, Story had his biggest passing performance, 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, which ties for a season high, and, of course, no interceptions. Ty Story, the grad transfer from Arkansas, I feel like Stephen Duncan did a good job in the early season, but you kind of see the experience that Ty Story has brought the last couple of weeks and just how balanced the offenses looked at certain points.
You know, when you compare the two, Stephen Duncan certainly had the bigger arm, had experience here playing with the players, probably more of an upside. Story's advantage certainly is his experience at a high level playing in the SEC. A little more accurate, I think, with the mid-range game. And I believe he's probably able to see the game a little bit better now than Steven does, just because of experience. So he can get you in and out of plays. He's very canny at being able to find little crevices in the defensive line. If we needed 3 or 4 yards, he seems to be able to skirt through there and pick his way. He's a nifty little runner, not fast, but he's gifted in finding holes. If we need 5, maybe he can get 6. And he's been able to move the sticks 2 or 3 times a game just by running the ball. And that's something that we haven't had in a long time. Brandon Dowdy and Mike White passed it all over the place and didn't need to run and didn't like to run. But they were always hoping that maybe they could get a little more out of those 2 quarterbacks and running the ball, getting a first down or 2. But that they do now have that with Ty Storey.
And another point I want to bring up with Ty Storey, Stephen Duncan got the start at the beginning of the year, and usually when we read about these grad transfers, they transfer in because they want to play immediately, and especially at the quarterback position. So Storey loses out that battle to begin the season. I mean, this guy has to have a certain mentality about him to be able to come over midway through the season, replace a guy who got injured, and still have that same mentality of, look, I'm going to make this job mine halfway through the season and let people know that, look, I'm going to do the best I can to win as many games.
Yep, credit to him. He was very disappointed when he didn't win coming out of August. And I think maybe even more disappointed because the thought process, or at least the coach talk at the time, was we're going to play a couple of different quarterbacks in games and this or that. And Storey was only in for 1 snap in the first 3 games. He was in for 1 snap against FIU and ran the ball. So not only did he lose the quarterback matchup with Duncan, but I think he anticipated maybe getting it, a few plays here and there were some packages, and it just never materialized. So that's disappointment number 2.
Yeah.
So he had to overcome that, and he's done well.
And we'll transition. We've talked a lot of offense. We've got to talk about the defensive side of the ball and what they've done. 2 weeks ago against Army, I came on this program with Matt Morrison after that game, and I asked Matt if he had seen a better full defensive performance from a Hilltopper football team in his life. And he couldn't really remember one off the top of my head. Now, I'm a lot younger, and I sure as heck could not remember one off the top of my head. Do you remember a better full defensive performance than what the Toppers did 2 weeks ago against Army?
Boy, the only game I can think of, and FAU certainly isn't or wasn't as good as this Army team was, but they had Alfred Morris. And this was a game in Boca Raton a few years ago. It was the dedication of the stadium, Howard Schnellenberger, and they dedicated the stadium. And that was Willie Taggart, I believe, was the head coach that year. And the Tops went down there and held them to, I think, less than 100 yards. I mean, they hardly. It was a total domination, and I think it was 35-3. I believe was the final score. Not comparing the two programs, but Alfred Morris was an NFL running back,
absolutely,
and they went down there and. I remember Andrew Jackson had a big game, middle linebacker, and they just wiped them away. And that was really, sort of the beginning, turning the tide of the football program, and you could see the future was going to be bright. So without putting too much thought into it, those really are the 2 games I would say where they were just totally dominant defensively against teams that certainly had tremendous stats offensively. Army came in averaging 35, and they had a gift touchdown with a minute to go. FAU, I don't recall, it was too many years ago, but I would assume they were averaging in the high 20s to low 30s when we rolled in there. And, they're dedicating the stadium, and it was a big deal for FAU, and it was just a bad afternoon for Howard Schnellenberger.
I knew you would at least have one game that would come close to that Army game as well. But sticking with that Army game real quick before we get into this Marshall matchup coming this weekend, I thought one more thing that was so impressive from the defense that doesn't really look that impressive on the stats. Army didn't have any turnovers, which made the Hilltopper defense to me look even more impressive because, look, they didn't give WKU any gifts. They didn't fumble any snaps. They didn't fumble any exchange on the option. They just tried to run their offense for 40 minutes or however long they needed to run it, and it never worked.
It was just total domination. And Clayton White, I talked to him earlier in the week, the defensive coordinator, and Clayton played triple option football in high school. He was a quarterback when he was a little smaller than he is now. And I think I felt good about it because it all starts with stopping the dive, and our defensive tackles are really good. And I think it was even a better sign when Jeremy Darvin went down in the first quarter in that game, and LaShawn Terrell, his backup, went down, I believe, in the third quarter in that game, maybe late in the second. And it was Army still was not able to establish the dive. And I knew if Army couldn't run over our tackles, how much success are they going to have attacking Jawan Jones and D'Angelo Malone on the ends? Yeah. So I felt good about coming into that game that they were going to be able to slow Army down. Did I think they would hold them to, I believe it was 137 yards? No, because they came in averaging about 280. But just a tremendous performance. Looking in the media guide, that game I was referencing back in Boca Raton, that was the year of 2011, and that score was 20-0.
Yeah, that'll get it done. That's a defensive shutout. That'll definitely get it done. Actually, if Army wouldn't have got that late garbage time drive, I learned this in the press box. The last time they were shut out was against Stanford in 2013.
Yeah, 2014.
2014 against Stanford. So besides that garbage time drive, in my personal record book, I'm going to call it a shutout. My personal record book. WKU football on the road against Marshall this Saturday, 1:30. Randy Lee, voice of the Tops, in studio, joining us. This Marshall team
I want to go back to something you said prior.
Oh yeah, to break, absolutely. Please do.
That I didn't probably answer correctly. If WKU wins Saturday, and that would give Marshall 2 losses in conference. If they're able to win the following week against a good FAU team, FAU would at least have 2 losses. We don't know what they're going to do this week. So if that being the case, with a 2-game lead, with 2 games to play, well, Marshall and FAU still have another game. They have played 1 fewer games. So I was thinking that would guarantee it because you have a 2-game lead with 2 games to go and your head-to-head competition. You're beating both teams. But Marshall's played only 3 league games. FAU's played only 3 league games.
Okay.
So it would not clinch it, but you'd be really good shape.
Yeah, it would certainly put you ahead of the pack, to say the least. WKU and Marshall again Saturday, 1:30, 12:30 pregame show. You can listen over on Sam 100.7 to Mr. Randy Lee here. The Thundering Herd, 4-3 overall, 2-1 in conference, and we talked about it. Well, mentioned it earlier that they just got a win over FAU on the road this past weekend. I don't know if you're a big Twitter guy, but Lane Kiffin, he's going to get a big fine for what he put on Twitter about the Conference USA referees. Do you see that?
Someone sent that to me on Facebook. They know I'm on Facebook, but he sent me a copy of that, and he was fined $5,000.
But it was just, it was pretty funny. I don't have $5,000 to give away. Obviously, Lane Kiffin must.
Lane's fine.
Yeah, Lane's fine about it. But the big story is the Hilltoppers and Marshall this Saturday. Marshall, that win for them really puts them back in shape for a Conference USA East Division championship. But now they're playing the leader in the East Division, the WKU Toppers. It feels like it's been a while since Western Kentucky has had that X on their back, the team to beat in Conference USA football. All of a sudden, they're right back at the top of the division. They're playing 2 teams that are hungry to get that first place spot.
You young guys have a different sense of time than us old men. It's only been since 2016.
Well, social media, it goes fast.
2016. WKU went 7-1 in conference, and in 2015 they were undefeated. So, yeah, it's been a couple of years.
Let me throw my narrative out there, Randy. Come on now.
But, yeah, it's great to have, and I think it's a big surprise. I think, conference-wise, I don't think anyone anticipated through 4 games that the Tops would be 4-0. I don't think anyone would have thought that, especially after you losing your first game. But even if they would have defeated Central Arkansas, I don't think anyone would have expected WKU to beat both UAB at home and at FIU. Maybe one of the two, but to go 4-0, I think most people are surprised.
And this WKU defense, we mentioned it just a little bit. I saw an article at the beginning of the season from Athlon Sports. They ranked the top 7 position groups in Conference USA on offense and defense. Mm-hmm. I think the tops were in the top 7 in the wide receiver group, in the top 7 in the offensive line group. Not one position group on defense was put in the top 7. How do you think that list would change today if they were going to redo that list?
Well, I have not looked at Louisiana Tech, statistically speaking, yet. So I don't know as much about Louisiana Tech as I should, simply because we're not playing them.
Yeah.
They have not lost a game in conference. But that aside, I would tend to think the number 1 ranked position of any team would be WKU's defensive line. Yeah. I think they would be what position group in the conference is the very best? Is that secondary? It would be WKU's defensive line. With the way Malone has played, he is putting up All-American numbers. He would be the defensive player of the year if the league. We have 4 games to go, but as of right now, he's the defensive player of the year. Jones and the other ends having an all-conference season, and the defensive tackles have been very good as well. They're only giving up 11 points a game in league. 44 points per game is all they've allowed in the 4 league games. They've only allowed. In conference games, they still have not allowed a single point in the fourth quarter. But it all starts up front. So to me, I don't think maybe with Louisiana Tech aside, I have to look into their stats a little bit more. The defensive line for WKU, it's the best in my 13 years here.
And now, because it fits my narrative, just a short time ago, it felt like Conference USA, to win the conference, you had to score 50 points a game. You had to score 40 points a game. Now, all of a sudden, WKU, they're beating conference teams by shutting them down to 11, 12 points a game.
I asked Tyson when he came back or shortly thereafter, maybe a couple of weeks into the season, okay, you've seen the league. How is it different than it was when you were here as an offensive coordinator? He goes, well, back then, the offenses were way ahead of the defenses. Times have changed a little bit. He goes, the defenses have been able to catch up a little bit more. They're playing smaller players at linebacker, faster defenses than he had to scheme against when he was here. So the defenses have caught up. UAB's numbers are even better than our numbers, defensively speaking. So it is a little different than when he was here, when it was the wild, wild west, and you had our quarterbacks, and you had Tyler Heineke at Old Dominion, and you had Cato at Marshall. This league has Nathan Fine, who's a very good quarterback at North Texas. He's probably head and shoulders over most. I do know the quarterback at Southern Miss has had some good numbers. Louisiana Tech's Jamar Smith is good, but they're nothing into the Cato and the Heineke and the White and Dowdy range. The quarterback play is not as good as it was back then, and I think defenses have a lot to do with it.
Again, Marshall will host the Hilltoppers Saturday, 1:30, 12:30 pregame show. You can get all your information for the game day on SAM 100.7 starting at 12:30. The Tyson Helton Coaches Show is tonight at 7 o'clock, also on SAM 100.7. Voice of the Hilltoppers, Randy Lee, in studio joining us. Randy, you got something you want to get to? You picked up a piece of paper. It looks important.
I'm looking at the league stats now. I printed them off earlier today, and I mentioned Louisiana Tech. I didn't know much about them, statistically speaking. Their defensive numbers are just okay, so I'm really confident in saying certainly the best defensive position group is Western Kentucky University's defensive line.
So make sure you tune in later tonight, 7 o'clock, Randy Lee with Coach Helton. I always like you talking with Coach. He's a pretty good talker. Sometimes you get those coaches, they get into their coach speak, as I like to call it. Mm-hmm. And he's one of those, he kind of breaks outside of the box a little bit, which is nice.
You can lead Tyson in any direction. He's fine with it. He's as good as we've ever worked with.
And before I let you out of here, we were talking Major League before we went on air. The MLB, I almost called them the MLB Finals. I'm ready for NBA, if you can tell, Randy. But the World Series is coming up tomorrow night. Actually, right out of the sports web, you can listen to the Nationals and the Houston Astros. Who you got? Not who you want, who you got. Who you think's going to take it home?
I'll pick Houston.
Yeah, I think Houston's going to take it home, too. I kind of want the Nationals to win just because, they've never been there or whatever, in my lifetime at least.
Right.
But, man, those Astros, they are too good.
Yeah, jealousy speaking, I don't want the Nats to win. I'm an Oriole junkie, and we don't want, the Nats just up the road there to win a World Series when we're struggling right now.
Well, I think Baltimore's just taking a page out of the Astros book. Just take a couple of years down and, give it some time. It'll come back.
That's exactly what they've done. In fact, they have hired Houston Astros front office people to run their team.
Oh, that's funny.
So they're doing the same thing they did at Houston. It worked. Baltimore's really this will only be their second year in the rebuilding under the current regime. But I will tell you this, of the Baltimore has 6 minor league teams. 4 of the 6 minor league teams led their respective leagues in ERA. So maybe the young arms are coming.
Hopefully. We'll hold out hope for you, Randy. 7 o'clock, Tyson Helton Coaches Show on Sam 100.7. Thanks to the voice of the Hilltoppers for joining us on the Sportsline, ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio1027.com.
This is a Morgan & Morgan consumer message.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. I am often asked, what is the value of my case? The answer, of course, depends on your injuries, liability, and the damages to you financially. And it also very much depends on the law firm you hire to represent you. Many times, firms are hired without much thought or research. All firms are not the same, not even close. I know of firms and lawyers who haven't tried a case in years, maybe never. The insurance company knows who they are, too. Some lawyers need the money more than you do. Go to forthepeople.com and look at our verdicts in court. Here you will see injuries just like yours. You will see what the insurance company offered and, more importantly, what a jury decided. You will have an idea what your case may be worth in our hands. And just because you've already hired a lawyer doesn't mean you can't fire them before it's too late. For over 30 years, Morgan & Morgan has been here at your time of need. On your cell, dial Pound Law, that's all. Offices, Bowling Green.
I want to tell you about the Cheetah Clean Auto Wash Unlimited plan and how it will save you time and money. True story. Last month, in my parking spot at home, I kept noticing a bird had executed an aerial attack on my car. So I went to Cheetah Clean. Then the next morning, same thing. Direct hit, plural. Finally caught the red bird red-handed. It was seeing itself in my mirror, but he thought it was a foe. No more washing your car and then it rains and you wasted your cash. Just shoot through Cheetah Clean Auto Wash and you're back in a dash. Cheetah Clean Auto Wash, 3 locations. 31W Bypass, Veterans Memorial, and Franklin, Kentucky. CheetahClean.com.
Believe it or not, the holiday season is upon us. Is your budget ready? This is Stephanie Howard with Monticello Bank. Make sure you're prepared for holiday shopping, travel, entertaining, and more with our NBC MasterCard. Our card has a great introductory rate, no annual fee, a fantastic rewards program, and is serviced right here at home. Stop by one of our 3 local branches to apply today, or visit NBCBank.com to apply online. Monticello Bank, where people matter. Member FDIC.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Don't let germs live to see another birthday. To kill germs, wash your hands with soap and warm water for at least 20 seconds. That's about the same time it takes to sing happy birthday twice.
Happy birthday to you.
This is a public service announcement provided by Warren County Water District, Simpson County Water District, and Butler County Water System, along with Barron River District Health Department.
Since 1983, Skag Power Equipment has built simply the best commercial-grade zero-turn lawnmowers and equipment money can buy. Take advantage of end-of-season savings on Skag zero-turn mowers at one of the Vance stores in Bowling Green or Glasgow. No matter the mowing conditions, Skag has the industry-leading cut you deserve and expect. With 0% financing offers and monthly payments available below $100 with approved credit, one of the Vance stores can find an affordable Skag that will make your grass look great. Come check out the Skag Mowers season-ending sale at one of the Vance stores. Skag Mowers are simply the best. The Vance store is here to back them up.
Welcome back to Sportsline, ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio1027.com. Garret Browning at Garret Browning5 on Twitter. If you want to reach out, any questions or concerns during the show, you want to yell at me about how bad the Titans played to win, I'm okay with that. 3-4, we'll take it. Still last in the AFC South, but back in the mix. Oh, those words are so beautiful. Hilltopper Hysteria last Thursday The men's and women's basketball seasons are going to sneak up on you. November 2nd, the men's start exhibition play versus Kentucky State. And October 31st, the women will start versus Kentucky Wesleyan. Obviously, both of those are exhibition matchups, but that's just 10 days away from college basketball. It's here. NBA starts tomorrow. The Clippers and the Lakers. Oh, don't get me started. WKU volleyball number 23 in the AVCA poll, an NCAA best 21st win this season, 17 straight victories at UAB this Friday at 7 o'clock. You can you can watch on CUSA.tv with a subscription, and they are at Charlotte Sunday noon. That game will not be on CUSA TV. World Series starts tomorrow. The Nationals at the Astros. You can tune in directly after the Sports Web to see who's going to win Game 1 of the World Series. Just heard from Randy Lee. He's going with the Stros. And he also wants the Astros because he's not a Nationals guy. He's an Orioles guy. Understandable. Baltimore, Washington can't get it done. He is a Bullets guy. So we should have gotten into that. How are you a Washington Bullets guy? I guess there's no Baltimore basketball team, so that counts. But anyways, Tennessee Titans, that's what we're getting into. We just got done discussing WKU football, 5-2 overall, 30-14 win over Charlotte this past weekend. And at Marshall, Saturday, 1:30, the Moonshine Throwdown. 4-3 are the Herd, 2-1 in Conference USA. Big East Division matchup. And the week after, another one. At home versus FAU, 4-3, 2-1 in conference. They just lost to Marshall. So let's get another dub. Let's go to 5-0 in conference and get bowl eligibility at 6-2 this weekend. It's possible for the Toppers. For the Titans, they host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this Sunday. Yes, you heard me right. The 3-4 Titans defeated the now 2-5 Chargers on Sunday, 23-20, in one of the weirdest, awkward endings you'll ever see in an NFL football game. The Titans led 23-13 with about 5.5 minutes to go. They give Phillip Rivers 4 plays, 75 yards. He cuts it to a 3-point game. Titans move it once or twice, move the chains. They get to midfield, go for it on 4th and 1, fail on the QB sneak, give Phillip Rivers with no timeouts, 1:30 to go 50 yards, score a touchdown and win the game, or kick a field goal and send it to overtime. And if you're a fan of this show, you know what I like to say about Phillip Rivers and Matthew Stafford, and I thank the Le Batard Show for pointing this out to me. If those guys are on the field on an NFL Sunday, there's one thing that's going to happen at the end of the game. Matthew Stafford and Phillip Rivers are going to be down a score. They're going to need a score. There's going to be 2 minutes left, 2.5, maybe a minute and a half, and they're going to have no timeouts. And sure enough, Sunday, Phillip Rivers down 3, 1:30, no timeouts, 50 yards to go. He drives the Chargers all the way down inside the goal line. Twice has a touchdown taken off the board thanks to review. Both were accurate reviews coming from a biased Titans fan, but from what I understand, they were accurate reviews. And then Melvin Gordon would try to run it in from the 1-yard line again. To fumble it on the review, Jarrell Casey recovers in the end zone. Touchback, game over. Ugly football from 2-4 teams. What else could you expect? But Tennessee, they stay in the mix, and now they got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this Sunday, who are 2-4. They have quarterback controversy. Is Jameis Winston actually their guy? Which Jameis Winston is going to show up? The one that throws 5 touchdowns against the LA Rams, or the one that throws 4 interceptions to the Carolina Panthers? We don't know what Ryan Tannehill is going to show up Sunday. Ryan Tannehill, and I'll say it on this show, I was a Mariota stan. I said, what's the difference last week? What's the difference between Tannehill and Mariota? Well, I guess we saw the difference. Tannehill did look composed in the pocket and did throw some really tight windows to make some contested catches, which you have to do in the NFL. That's something Mariota hadn't done the last couple of weeks, is be able to make those contested throws, contested catches possible. But the big key was my number one problem last week. When I mentioned the big three problems for the offense of the Tennessee Titans, I said number one, the offensive line. Tannehill was just sacked twice, and his one interception was actually totally given up thanks to the offensive line. He was hit while he was thrown and trying to throw the ball forward, got hit on the arm and threw it right to a defender. It really wasn't his fault at all, just a poor pass protection. But the Titans stepped it up on the offensive line. You notice Jack Conklin did not play at right tackle. They moved in Dennis Kelly, and I made this comment last week. Jack Conklin, man, he has been horrendous for this season. And I think it was huge for the Titans not only to make that switch to Ryan Tannehill, but to throw Dennis Kelly in at right tackle. They've had a lot of injuries. From what we understand, Jack Conklin was injured, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was half injury, half this guy's not playing well enough. They only had 5 offensive linemen in that game. If one of those 5 guys went down, I guess they're bringing in a tight end, maybe a D tackle. I don't know. But they did the job against a pretty good defensive front in the LA Chargers, a defense that is known for the way it rushes the passer and is known for the way it can create turnovers with their great cornerbacks. You know, Casey Hayward, Desmond King, and they've got some very, very quick linebackers as well. I just couldn't believe it. The Titans 23-20 over the Chargers. Now they host the Buccaneers this Sunday. 2-4 are Tampa Bay on the season. Stay tuned. We've got deleted tweets to get to. We've got our Gambling Garrett segment. And look, you need to pay attention to Gambling Garrett, because I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I'm 0-4 this season, but you know what that means. If you are betting against me, you're 4-0. So I'm going to keep doing this segment because I'm helping somebody out there. If I go to 0-6 next week and nobody is betting against me, I don't know what's going on. Entertainment purposes only. You're welcome. ESPN Radio 102.7 FM, ESPN Radio 102.7.com. This is the Sportsline at Garret Browning 5 on Twitter.
Thank you for making Fire Pit Spirits the best. For the first time, you voted a single business the best of Barron County in 4 categories. Best in customer service, best locally owned business, best beer selection, and best beer and liquor store. And they realized that they couldn't have done it without you. So they just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to their customers. Fire Pit Spirits, the area's premier full-service liquor store, according to your votes. Thank you, Barron County, from everyone at locally owned and operated Fire Pit Spirits. 1100 Happy Valley Road, Glasgow.
Junior Achievement's 24th Annual Career and Workforce Golf Invitational presented by M&L Electrical is Friday the 25th at Crosswinds Golf Course. Teams of 4 hit the links with morning or afternoon sessions trying to be crowned JA's overall golf champion. All golfers receive a Russell Athletic Polo and lunch from Rafferty's, Coca-Cola, and Smith Brothers Distributing. Junior Achievement's Career and Workforce Golf Invitational benefits junior achievement and its K-12 programs. Register today at jaforkids.com.
Classic car or truck, then join Brewster's Cruising for a Cure. This Tuesday, cruising will take place at Brewster's, 5 to 8 p.m., 2712 Scottsville Road. Brewster's Cruising for a Cure. Help out the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation and Alzheimer's Foundation, along with benefiting Hospice of Southern Kentucky. Brewster's Cruising for a Cure. Tuesday night at Brewster's, 5 to 8 on Scottsville Road. Bring out your classic car or truck and help out this great cause with J.C. Kirby and Son.
Welcome back, Sportsline, ESPN Radio, ESPN Radio 1027.com. We had voice of the Hilltoppers, Randy Lee, in studio a little earlier in the program, so you'll have to check out the podcast if you missed that interview. All you have to do is search West Strader Sportsline wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It doesn't matter, man. Or just head to ESPN Radio 1027.com, click on the podcast tab, and you'll see Sportsline and all of our weekly episodes. And, of course, just tune in Mondays 5 to 6 live You can catch all my mistakes without me having to cut anything for the podcast. Makes it more interesting. Local Sports Center update, Titans 3-4. Win over the Chargers this weekend. WKU Volleyball, number 23 in the American Volleyball Coaches Association poll, moving up one spot from number 24 thanks to their NCAA Best 21st victory this weekend. At UAB Friday, at Charlotte on Sunday. WKU football is on the road for the Moonshine Throwdown in Huntington, West Virginia. The Thundering Herd are 4-3, 2-1 in the conference. The Hilltoppers 5-2, 4-0 in Conference USA. 1:30 kickoff, 12:30 pregame here on ESPN Radio or on SAM 100.7. And tonight, the Tyson Helton Coaches Show at 7 o'clock from Roosters, SAM 100.7. You can catch Randy Lee and the head ball coach Tyson Helton talking all things WKU football from their win over Charlotte this weekend and looking ahead to that Moonshine Throwdown. Tyler Eaton is on his way into the studio to give his gambling picks. That'll be our finishing segment each week. We both went 0-2 last week, so we've got redemption on the mind. We've also got to get to our deleted tweet segment. My deleted tweet absolutely contradicts something I said earlier in the program, but that's how I like to do things around here. 270-782-1945. Call in right now if you'd like to give your deleted tweet. If you don't know what deleted tweet is, obviously it's your hottest take. You don't want to put out there to your followers. You don't want to let your followers think you're stupid, but you come and put it out on the airwaves to everybody, and it makes you feel less stupid. That's what it makes me feel like, at least. 270-782-1945 if you want to give us your deleted tweet segment. The World Series starts tomorrow. You can listen straight out of the sports web. 6 o'clock, the pregame show will be underway after the sports web. 7:08 first pitch between the Nationals and the Stros. Max Scherzer on the mound for the Nats, 11-7, 2.92 ERA. A walk hits innings pitched of 1.03, 243 Ks, 33 walks. 33 walks over 172 innings. My gosh. Garrett Cole, 20-5, 212 innings, 2.5 ERA, .89 whip, 326 strikeouts, 48 walks. These dudes are ridiculous. If it is not a pitching duel game one of the World Series, I will be absolutely mind blown. These two guys could absolutely both go the distance and throw 130, 140 pitches. They are monsters on the mound. You know, I don't think this is the matchup that everybody predicted coming into the playoffs. Obviously, the Dodgers, I think, were the heavy favorites coming out of the NL. But the Nationals have been the hottest team in baseball probably the second half of the season. Past the first 50 games of the season, the Astros 81-44, 192-plus run differential. That's second, the Astros. The best team past the first 50 games, well, that's the Nationals. 84-41 and 206-plus run differential. Whew. It's going to be a fun series on the road in Houston tonight for the Nats. Our buddy Will Howard over there, I can see him. He's already sweating. We're only 26 hours away, and he's already sweating for his Nationals opportunity at a World Series title. We'll get to our deleted tweet segment right now, courtesy of our buy, Cameron Coates.
From freezing cold takes to that 1 a.m. mistake, it's deleted tweets.
My deleted tweet this week, if you were listening earlier in the show, I asked Randy Lee for his prediction. Not who you want, it's who do you think's going to win. And I went with the Astros. He obviously went with the Astros as well. Well, now it's time to contradict myself in this deleted tweet segment. Thank you, Tyler, for coming in at the perfect time. You scared the bleep out of me, dude. I almost cursed on air. I'm not going to lie.
Tyler, glad I'm here.
At Tyler Eaton Radio, pulling up in studio. You're just in time for my deleted tweet segment.
I know. I had to hear yours. I mean, I can't miss it.
So I said the Astros were going to win earlier in the program, and here I go contradicting myself. Deleted tweet. The Nationals are going to win in 6 games. They're going to shock the world in Washington. They'll win Game 6, clean up that series, and knock out the Houston Astros, surprise the world.
Has Will been in your ear I mean, is he getting to you? Has he been talking to you? What's going on here?
I just see the nervousness across the way, and I'm trying to, pump him up a little bit, give him that hope.
I understand.
Even though it's me picking the Nationals, and we know what that means for the Houston Astros.
You pretty much just abandoned all hope. They both heard that, and they're done. You should have stuck with Houston. Washington fans out there, I'm sorry. On behalf of everybody at the station, I'm sorry.
Well, you came in here screaming, so I know you've got to delete a tweet you want to get to, right?
Yes, 100%. Okay. So I saw the opening line, and I might be biased in this. The WKU Marshall opening line was at 4.5, I think. And now it's already up to 6.5. That is rubbish, okay? My deleted tweet, I'm all in on this. Western wins that ball game. Put it on paper before anybody else calls their shot in this one. Western wins the moonshine throwdown. That's my deleted tweet. I'm putting it down before anybody else makes the pick. I've been picking the Tops every week. You've been picking against them every week. It's been working perfectly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call my shot already. I'm calling it.
It's worked perfectly for the Tops. Now, our gambling picks purely
they have worked terribly
for entertainment purposes, have worked terribly. Last week in the gambling Garrett segment, I went 0 for 2. I'm 0 4 total. Mm-hmm. Last week I said the Packers on Monday night minus 3.5 over the Lions, 23-22. The Pack had to come back and win that game. And then I said +1, the Chargers versus the Titans. And I got to tell you, Tyler, with 1.5 minutes left in that game, Phillip Rivers standing at midfield, no timeouts, I felt pretty confident that my gambling pick was going to pay off.
I did, and just the fact that if it was any other quarterback in the NFL, even Tom Brady, I would have felt less confident than I did with Phillip Rivers out there against the Titans.
It's just his moment.
But man, ever since Melvin Gordon came back, I texted somebody and I told him, I said, look, if there was a plus or minus stat in the NFL, I think Melvin Gordon's would probably be the worst in NFL history. He has been just terrible since coming back. Austin Eckler was one of the best running backs in the league. Oh. And then Gordon comes back and they just throw Eckler to the side, and now he's a wide receiver? I don't even know what they're doing, and it's not working, obviously.
It wasn't me, but the guy next to me kept screaming, dude, you should have held out longer. I'm just saying.
Ever since he's come back, that offense has been 10 times worse, by far. You can't even argue it. And then, of course, it was him that comes down and makes the losing play. I was deep down, I was happy. I was very happy. Not just because it was Melvin Gordon that it happened to, but because Ryan Tannehill came in and he wins the ball game.
Oh, you know what that music means.
I'm ready. I'm ready
Luck
for
be
redemption.
a lady. It's our Gambling Garrett segment. I mentioned it 0-2 last week, so we're looking to right the ship this week. Or if you want to bet against me, there's a good chance that you'll go 100%. We'll find out once again this week. I usually try to give you at least one pick from the Monday night game, an underdog and a favorite from the coming week in the NFL, even though this Monday night game is technically week 7 and next week's week, blah, blah, blah. Tonight's game, I'm picking the underdog, the Jets, +10.
That's tempting.
Sam Darnold back in the lineup. I feel like the Jets at home are going to hang in there long enough to cover that.
I appreciate you doing
+10.
that. I really appreciate you doing that, because now I know my Patriots are winning by 3 touchdowns?
Oh, I'm not betting money line Jets.
I appreciate it.
They'll cover +10 Jets, Pats tonight. And my favorite for this weekend, I absolutely should not do this. The Titans 2.5. They're hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 60% of the money right now coming in on the Buccaneers. That is crazy.
That is.
How do you trust the Bucs that much? Granted, last week I said it was crazy that the Chargers were +1.
I thought
so
that
there
was
you go.
Ridiculous. So the fact, I saw that line and I was a little tempted to do it, but with it being the Titans, I mean,
yeah, you can.
You can't. Well, you can, of course,
absolutely,
because this is your pick, and I guess you just want to doom them. I don't understand it. You would think you would want them to keep this momentum going. Why are you not picking against them again? You know how this works, Garrett.
I want it. I just want to get one pick right. Damn it, Tyler.
My first one that I noticed, and this one really stood out to me because I don't get it at all, is the Seattle-Atlanta game coming up next week, and it's a pick-em right now. At Atlanta, they're 1-6. Seattle has an MVP candidate at quarterback in Russell Wilson. That game's a pick-em. That line is going to move whatever it moves to. Give me Seattle in that one. That's my favorite. And then I've had some difficulty picking my dog next week because there are a lot of them that I actually like. Philly at Buffalo was really tempting for me. I think Philly could straight up win that ball game. And then I had to think in my head, do I think the Titans have that letdown? And I'm not going to dig into all that because I'm not going to pick the Tampa to do anything. But there are a lot of good dogs this week. If you want to pick one, the one that I ultimately decided on, and I hate that I'm doing this, but I'm going to have to trust in Kyler Murray. They're at New Orleans. Arizona is Saints favored by 9.5. I'm taking Arizona against the spread. New Orleans coming off a huge win over Chicago. I do believe in the letdown. Like I mentioned, the Titans could very well have one of their own, but 9.5 seems a little big for me. Arizona's sneaky 3-3-1 right now. Kyler Murray's been playing really, really well, especially if you've got him on your fantasy team. I like that pick. So those are my redemption picks.
And I feel like the Saints are a favorite pick this week because of what they did to the Bears yesterday. But to be honest, are the Bears that good?
Did you see what my Raiders did to the Bears? I say my Raiders because I have 4 Raiders on my fantasy team, so now I am by default a Raiders fan. They dominated Chicago, and I mean, it didn't surprise me that New Orleans was able to do the same, but I think Arizona can hang with. I think the Saints will put up points, but I think the Cardinals can hang with them. I don't think that New Orleans defense is as good as it was last year.
Well, luck be our lady. That's our Gambling Garrett segment. Of course, so far we're winless. I mean, this is a terrible...
I might have gotten one the first week.
Yeah, you might have gotten...
I don't remember.
You were not with me for week 1. You were not with me for week 1.
I was there in spirit.
You were there in spirit. Week 2, you were there, and I've got it on clip,
okay.
So there's nothing you can run away from there. But this week I'm feeling pretty good. I think those are both good selections on both of our parts. Jets and the Patriots tonight. I know you're probably high on your Patriots, but...
I did say they were going to go 19-0.
What do we think?
That was when Antonio Brown was on the roster.
Obviously, the Jets and the Bills aren't, or the Jets and the Dolphins aren't going to challenge for that AFC division title. Do you actually think the Bills are a legit contender? And try not to come from biased Patriots standpoint. How good are the Bills?
They don't have enough on offense to do the trick. Like we've seen good defensive teams go up against Tom Brady, and at the end of the day, it just doesn't matter. They've got a really, really good defense, but offensively, I just don't think they have enough. I think in a couple of years they could. Like they're trending in the right direction. I think Allen is going to be a pretty darn good NFL quarterback with all the memes that he had coming with him when he came to the league. The dude has a literal rocket for an arm. I mean, he can sling the ball 80 yards.
DraftJoshAllen.com.
From standing still. But not this year. I think they're too young. I don't think they have enough offensively. I think they need to build a bit more. They really don't have much of a threat outside. Like there's nobody that scares you from that receiving corps. For Buffalo, the defense, there's a lot of guys that scares you, but if there's anybody that's going to break down a defense, it's Bill Belichick. There's not a defense, when it comes to facing New England, there's not really a defense that worries me. So I think it's going to take a big-time offense to take them down. I think that's why people look at Kansas City as being the biggest possible threat, and that's why they were so close to taking New England out last year in the playoffs. It's going to take a really good offense to do it.
Got 2 minutes left in the program. WKU football at Marshall this Saturday. 1:30, 4-3 overall, 2-1 in the conference are the Thundering Herd. They just beat FAU this past weekend, and now they get to host the top team in the East Division, the Hilltoppers. You got Red Towel Radio this Thursday, so I know you'll probably save a lot of your Hilltopper tidbits for that. But what do you think about this game? Is this the most important game so far in the season?
Oh, absolutely. And I did just call my shot very blatantly that I think WKU wins this game. But we'll be live 4 to 5. We're moving up an hour because of the first basketball coaches shows coming up.
Oh.
Leo Peckinpah is going to join us for the first half hour. So you know you're going to get plenty of insight into this game. And it's another one that I look at because of the WKU defense, just how darn good it is. I like how this defense matches up with just about everybody. That's what I've said the past few games. I like how the defense matches up. Marshall, they've got a good run game. They've got a good pass game. But WKU's got a great defense. And I think we saw enough from the offense that if this game does turn into a shootout, which I don't think it will, I think that Western can keep up.
Now, look, my Gambling Garrett segment starts slow. 0-4 overall. My deleted tweets, they started kind of slow because I said Delano Banton was going to be, first-round draft pick.
Slow.
Maybe a top 10 pick, blah, 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 blah. But I did think I'm going to get one right on D'Angelo Malone. So
Yes.
I'm improving on these segments. You just got to give me a little time to get going, and all of a sudden I'm going to give you good content.
Yeah, I mean, one of these days when Delano Banton declares for the draft, he's going to have a breakout season. Where's he? Is he still at Nebraska?
I'm not going to say that one's going to come true. I'm just saying my deleted tweets have gotten better.
No, D'Angelo Malone might be the best defensive player in the country, period. And he got snubbed from a lot of these midseason teams. And I know he couldn't care less. I know the coaches couldn't care less. But goodness great, he is just ridiculous. And he had another great game against Charlotte. He is so good. I don't think even you could jinx him. I don't think it's possible.
Helps if I keep the mic on. 15 seconds left. Hilltopper Hysteria past Thursday. Hilltopper basketball. Are they better than they were last year?
Yes, undeniably.
Thank goodness. That's music to my ears. I can't wait. November 2nd, exhibition game for the men against Kentucky State. October 31st versus Kentucky Wesleyan for the women. 7 o'clock, the Tyson Helton Coaches Show on Sam 100.7. Thanks to Tyler Eaton. Randy Lee, I'm Garret Browning. Good night, sports fans.